close your eyes. Close your eyes. We're going to take a journey back in time. I want you just to imagine. Let your imagination run wild. Imagine that you were one of Jesus' followers. It's the Sunday after he died. Jesus is, to the best of your knowledge, dead. I want you to keep your eyes closed still, and I want you to imagine the sound of those around you. Whispering, thinking, muttering, crying. I want you to think of the mood of those that are around you. Perhaps you're even in the room where some of the disciples are. What are they thinking and feeling right now? Some of them have left their jobs. Others have left their family. Some their status and even their possessions. Everyone felt Jesus was the beginning of something new. Perhaps you're one of the disciples who are in hiding in the forest, in the mountains. Everyone was searching for something better and a reason for hope. And now, with Jesus' death, there's the feeling of hopelessness. See if for a moment you can identify with this feeling of hopelessness, this void. Perhaps in the pit of your stomach you're starting to feel it right now. The reason for being just isn't there any longer. Now you can open your eyes now. Set the tone, set the mood, so to say. And some of us know all too well this feeling of hopelessness, of depression, gut punch, wind taken out of your sail. Some of us know someone else. Maybe we haven't gotten there, but we know someone who has. Some of us, maybe not being that far removed, we have experienced things like medical problems, financial hardships, marital troubles, maybe even familial problems with our children, our parents, our grandparents. Perhaps we've dealt with incarceration. But any way you look at it, something can lead to hopelessness and despair. Now, I'm sorry if I'm touching on some things that some of you have pushed down or put behind you. Perhaps I need to contact your psychiatrist and to get set up a therapy session that you have pushed away. Some of you have not dealt with some of these feelings. And some of you might just water up the duck's back. But as we keep this in the forefront of our mind, and I would never wish this hope of despair upon anyone, I think that this is something that most of us can identify with the disciples of Christ at the time, the Sunday after his crucifixion. Everything you thought was there is gone. Let's go back in time. You don't need to close your eyes. We're going to go back in time again. It's still Sunday. Some of you perhaps were awake this morning while it was still dark. Yep. No. If you weren't, the sun woke you up. Go back a couple months, about that same time. It was just a nice dark morning. Perhaps rainy, I don't know. Most people are probably sleeping. Or perhaps they're pacing in worry or fear. But there are some women who went out to the tomb to continue the burial process of what a few men had started Friday night. On Saturday was the Sabbath, the day of rest, so they couldn't do anything. There were soldiers posted. There was a heavy stone placed in front of his grave. And they had laid this man Jesus, who had died on the cross. And these women came by. I don't know if they were naive and thinking they could just push the stone aside. I don't know. That's not my business. But for some reason or another, they came and thought, we've got a chance. We're going to go in and we're going to attend to the body. Maybe some nice guy there is going to help us out. Now, on their way, while it's still dark, they're on the lookout. Perhaps there are highwaymen, robbers. Perhaps there are wandering soldiers. There are guards who are stationed. Fear mixed with despair is present. Now, as we think about this, and these women who are walking to go prepare this dead body, you see, she was, and it wasn't until just a year or two prior to this that she had relief. But she had lived a life of hopelessness, beat down in despair. She was a prisoner. She's probably the laughingstock of the city. This woman was not looked highly upon by her community. She was a mess. And I think her last name was Lee. Because everything, probably she was mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually depleted. Pick whatever Lee you want to put on that word. But this was just her life. And then, one day, she met a man named Jesus who cast the demons out. And this woman who had nothing now had something. She became a follower of Jesus. Her name was Mary Magdalene. And she followed Jesus everywhere, almost like a kicked puppy. I don't know why dogs do that. I mean, you can have a dog and just get off of me. Right off in the corner. And like 5 minutes later, it's looking out at you with those puppy dog eyes. Can I come out with it, please? I'm not sure how she was in all of this, but Mary Magdalene knew what it was like to live in these pits of despair. But then she had real happiness, real fulfillment. And now it was taken from her again. This source of hope, this life that she had been given, had been removed. And she was broken. And yet, she goes to the tomb. Many of us in our lives have come to a point of despair, of brokenness, and we stop. We go to destructive behaviors. We do this, we do that. And we no longer go through the motions. We just stop. I want to encourage you. Think back to one of the things that John Wesley said. Loose paraphrase. When you don't have faith, preach faith. And then when you find faith, preach faith. And then when you preach faith, live faith. Some of us need to remember, if we go through the motions, if we show up to church, if we're present with other believers, maybe we don't get it. But if we keep doing it, and we keep doing it with purpose, we'll find that we will get met somewhere along that line. Now, some of you are aware that on a door there's a horizontal beam. And if you push that, in most cases the door will open. Now, has anybody ever been to the supermarket? In the supermarket, they don't have those push buttons. It's just a plain glass door, and it opens and closes. Now, if you're lucky, you'll show up on a day that someone had broken one of those doors, and they put up a new door. And that new door does not have any stickers on it. See where we're going with this? And before they plug it all in and set it up, you get to sit and watch someone go right through that door. And they bounce back. And what do? You laugh. Unless they're old. I guess you can always find out how old you are. Because if something happens to you, if people laugh, you're young. If people show concern, oh my goodness, you're old. So as long as people are laughing at you, you're okay. But no, sometimes though, you keep going. I'm going through the motions, Pastor, but I keep hitting the door. And that's where we as a church are responsible for grabbing the person by the shoulder gently, moving them over 2 feet, and escorting them in. Because we see the people who go through the motions. And maybe just don't get it yet. But with some of our help, all of a sudden, things can change. It's amazing how one person can alter the life of someone else, for good or for bad. And my encouragement to you as a church, as a body, be present with one another. When you see your brother or sister stumbling or hurting, ask to pray with them. Forget about that. Don't even ask to pray with them. Ask them, can I get you a cup of coffee? Can I take you to McDonald's? Can I help you? No, just leave me alone. Slip them the Starbucks gift and then walk away. These little acts, these little things speak volumes. It tells people, I care. Do any of you play footsies with the people next to you? I don't know if you know what that is. But I'm not saying like forever legs. I'm not saying lazy. I'm not saying lazy. I'm saying footsie. Okay? I'm saying it's even better if you sit next to someone you don't know.
Oh gosh. Yeah. No, thank you.
I'm not trying to make advances on it. But what I'm saying is, when you tap, you alert them, then you let them know that they're there. Especially if you tap it. Oh, I'm sorry. You ever sit across from someone? For me, when I sit at a table, my first thing is I put my foot wherever the piece is on the middle of it. Because I know as long as I'm tapping that, I'm not tapping them. My first thing, I sit down and my foot goes right there. I know where that's on accident. I love it with the ones that have little legs, so then not only do I have to find the middle, I can worry about the side. Oh, there it is. So then I don't have to sit there like this. Tables that are stuck to the wall. Your leg, I find it. Oops, sorry. But alerting someone that you're next to them, that you care. Because a lot of times, to be honest, we come into the church alone. You drive your own car. Maybe you come in with one or two person, but there's a pile of people here today, but you did not come with most of them. So we come in alone. And in general, we leave together. You're dismissed. We all get up and we kind of all walk and intermingle. Unfortunately, sometimes this person who's left over there, they don't know the people in the middle, so they're afraid. And now they're left to the side. If there's someone here today that you haven't seen in a long time, or the first time perhaps, don't give them the cold shoulder. Cold shoulders are only left for cannibals who are late to dinner.
Oh my goodness.
No, we're not tardy cannibals here. We're people who love one another, who support one another. And if we don't know how, we know somebody else who can. We are a community of people who support one another because of what Jesus has done for us. I can't stress this enough. Because Mary Magdalene goes to this tomb, not really sure what's going on. She's going through the motions. I'm going to do this. I'm going to carry this. I don't know why, but I'm going to do it. And as she goes to the tomb, she shows up, and the stone has been rolled away. Right. The guards are either asleep, knocked out, nowhere to be found. And she goes in. Now you can read one of the different gospel accounts, and sometimes she goes in with a couple other ladies, sometimes she's in by herself, and that's inconsequential. Again, you're sitting on this side of the room, you're sitting on this side of the room, and you're sitting through the camera. And what happens, you're each going to have a different experience of what you saw and remember of church. Okay? We have these gospel accounts, and they're all basically pointing out Mary Magdalene's in them all. And she's there, and she goes in. And then something happens. We opened up in John chapter 20. I'd like to continue that right now. Now Mary stood outside the tomb, crying. As she wept, she bent over to look into the tomb. Remember, Peter and John were still there inside. Or they had just left, excuse me. And she saw two angels in white seated where Jesus' body had been. One at the head, one at the foot. Now, it's quite possible that Peter and John were just blind, and these angels had been sitting there the whole time. But it's also quite possible that these angels just appeared. One sitting at the top and one sitting at the bottom. And they asked her, "Woman, why are you crying?" Now, I don't know if they were condescending. I don't know if they were loving. But they're asking, "Why were you crying?" And she makes a statement. She says, "They have taken my Lord away. I do not know where they have put him." At this, she turned around and she saw Jesus standing there. But she did not realize that it was Jesus. So she's walked into this cave. She kind of sees a little bit of light, and now she's turning around and it's that shadowy figure. Now, I seem to have this presence on some people that I cause them to jump. I show up into a room, they didn't hear me, they turned, yeah! And slapped. I haven't been stabbed or shot yet, but I've had all sorts of things come at me because I'm present and you did not know I was there. Well, here's that situation. She sees these angels, she's not sure what's going on. They said, "Why are you crying?" They took the body. She turns around and there's this figure. She's probably a little nervous. But he also asked the same thing. "Woman, why are you crying? Who is it that you're looking for?" She thought he was the gardener. She said, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have put him, and I will get him." And Jesus said to her in one simple word, not even a word, it was a name. He said, "Mary." And I'd like to let you know that Jesus knows your name. And your hour of despair and in your moment of hopelessness, if you listen closely, Holy Spirit will say your name. And as you listen closely and you hear your name, the question then is, what will you do? She turned toward him and cried out in Aramaic, "Rabboni," or rabbi, or teacher. Jesus said, and she probably hugged him, grabbed his feet. I don't know what she did, but long lost relative, friend who's gone away, whatever it is, they're reunited. You know she was, I'm so happy to see you. I'm not a hugger. Hey. But if I'm hugged, I can hug. I'm okay with that. Now, if you like hugs, my wife's a great hugger. And she insists on, hey! I met a guy the other day. He says, I don't know if you're a hugger, but I am. He just went right in for it. Okay. This wasn't a church thing. This is a secular thing. I was just doing my thing. And he came up, I had my hand and said, "Hey, how you doing?" "I don't know if you're a hugger, but I am." Okay. Amen. But Jesus says, "Hey, do not hold on to me, for I have not yet ascended to the Father. Go instead to my brothers and tell them, I am ascending to my Father and to your Father, to my God and your God." Mary Magdalene went to the disciples with the news. "I have seen the Lord." And she told them what he had said. And they were overjoyed. Some of them doubted, some of them weren't sure, and within the next couple of weeks we're going to reveal some of the things in which Jesus did after he rose from the dead. But Jesus did not go to the presidents, the kings, the dictators, and reveal himself there. Jesus revealed himself to his friends. Jesus revealed himself to a woman who was hopeless, who was in despair, who needed him the most. Many of us have burdens. Many of us have things that lead us to despair, hopelessness. And I'd like to tell you, you do not need to live in despair. You do not need to live with hopelessness. And as deep and as dark and as low as you may have fallen, there is still a way out. But Pastor, you don't know my circumstances. I gambled all the money away. We've got no place to live. I committed crimes. I'm going to jail tomorrow. Pastor, I've got 5 wives and none of them know about each other, and yesterday they all found out. I don't know if I can help in that. No, but God has a way that when we have fallen to our lowest points, he can help take us out. But one of the things that needs to happen is when we are in our lowest point and our eyes are looking at nothing but the floor, we have to stretch our necks and look up. We are growing up in a society today where kids are going to be hunchbacks. They're probably going to get an extra vertebrae and they're coming down like this. This is our society today. You all get to see my bald head. Here I'm okay. Here, oh my goodness, what's he trying to do? There's a time, I think it's time's probably passed. So past about 5 years, I should have cut this a while ago. I don't know, you guys see me short hair, short waist. Maybe did a comb. I have options, okay? It's falling from here to there, saying maybe if I push it back up. But when we are looking down, in a sense, this is what we've been trained to do. Our phones are down. Our backs are down. And we pray, we bow our head, but we stay with our head low we stay beaten down. Maybe start off with straight eye contact. Look at each of the people around you. And when you see them, smile, but not in a creepy way. And when you do these things, tell people what Jesus has done for you. And when people know what Jesus has done for you, those who have been down in despair might be interested. How can I get out? We'll be looking at that in the next few weeks. But today is Easter. And we celebrate the resurrection of Jesus Christ and his appearance to the hopeless. To those disciples who had everything taken from them. He's present. The promises that he had were there. And the promise that he has for you is realized. The promise that he has for me is true. We just need to reach out and grab it. I'd like us to close in a song today. I'd like us to close in just one verse. Because he lives. And I invite you to rise, turn your lights off, and have a listen.
Living.